Meadow Merrill's career began as a journalist, now an award-winning author for a story she wrote about an adoption that changed her life. She is here now to talk about her book, Redeeming Ruth. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here today.
I'm glad to have you. So I want to start with the title here, because the subtitle, Everything Life Takes, Love Restores, and that's kind of a theme throughout the book here. What did that mean to you?
It was hope for me. You know, we set out as a family from Maine to adopt a baby with multiple disabilities from an orphanage in Uganda, and we had specific hopes and dreams for her, some of which came about as we were privileged to raise her in our family, but also we faced some heartaches that we never imagined. And in the midst of that, those were really the words that sustained me, knowing that you know, that there really isn't anything in life that we can lose that ultimately love and God's love won't restore.
You met Ruth when she was 16 months old.
That's right.
She was from Uganda. She had cerebral palsy. Was there hesitation there in thinking we can bring her into our family right now?
Absolutely. My husband Dana and I had talked about adopting for a number of years. We had 3 healthy children, and friends of ours introduced us to Ruth, who had arrived in the mid-coast area of Maine for medical help for cerebral palsy, and they told us she was available for adoption, and I had never thought about adopting a child with disabilities, so that was a real challenge.
So what did this change in your family's life?
Right. I would say it caused us to look beyond, you know, sort of the textbook classification of what a person was capable of. And instead of looking at sort of the doctor's diagnoses, you know, saying that she would never advance intellectually, even over a child of about 2 months old, you know, we just continued to look at Ruth and the joy that was in her and her smile and responding to what she was telling us rather than what the medical community was telling us. And there were lots of places we needed the experts, you know, but when it came to what Ruth was capable of, we just kept looking at Ruth.
And you have won a Christopher Award for this story because of the way that you have kind of looked into the human soul here. What are you hoping your readers take away from this?
Quite honestly, you know, it's a story that goes into the need for children like Ruth to find loving families, so it focuses on adoption, but it's also a faith journey. And you know, even when we're pursuing something and we think we know what it looks like, you know, and sort of the whole scenario changes mid-course, to continue to have faith even when you're up against challenges that seem insurmountable, or even when you've lost things that feel like they can't be restored, even when you're at the end of, you know, what feels like any reason to hope, you know, to keep hoping that there is hope ahead.
All right, I want to ask you this, changing gears a little bit here, because we talked about how you're a journalist. You started your career in that path. You've written for newspapers like the Boston Globe. Did you ever see yourself writing about your own life?
No, not really. I was part of a small writers group in Bath when we were beginning our adoption, and I had been bringing them children's stories that I was working on. And they didn't want to hear my children's stories. They wanted to hear about Ruth. So I'd written a few pieces for our local newspaper about the adoption, and everywhere I went, the grocery store, you know, running into people downtown, they all wanted to know how things were going, and they wanted to know what happened next. And so slowly, from journals, from letters, from emails, you know, I started to write her story.
Even after Ruth has passed, your family has continued to try to help other orphans in Uganda through Welcome Home Ministries.
That's right.
What are you doing now to sort of help that out? Even the book itself helps them.
It is. You know, when we adopted Ruth, you know, some people said, well, how is this fair to your other children? Because her needs were so extreme. And I would look at my other children and think, well, they've never gone to bed hungry. They've never wondered where they were going to sleep at night. And so it was sort of instinctive for us to want to provide those things for Ruth, who didn't have any of that. And the fruits of this book are the same, in that You know, sure, we have struggles as a family, but nothing like their struggles. And so all of the royalties from this book benefit children who are orphaned or with disabilities in Uganda through Welcome Home, the orphanage that Ruth came here from.
Really incredible story. Meadow Romero, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And the book is called Redeeming Ruth. You can find out more information on the 207 section of our websites. And we'll be right back.